If you've checked your transmission fluid and noticed it's overfilled, you might be wondering what kind of problems that can cause and what signs to look out for. In this video, I'll go over the common symptoms of having too much transmission fluid and how to safely bring the level back down to where it should be. What counts as overfilled transmission fluid? First, let's talk about what it means for the transmission fluid to be overfilled and why it can be a concern. The way you check transmission fluid can vary slightly depending on the manufacturer. In some cases, you'll check it when the engine is hot, while in others, the fluid may need to be checked cold. Some vehicles require the car to be in park, while others need it in neutral. Check your vehicle's dipstick for specific instructions on how to check your transmission fluid properly. Generally, when the engine is warmed up and the transmission is hot, the fluid level should not be more than 1/4 inch above the hot line on the dipstick. If it exceeds this by much, it can cause problems, and you might want to consider draining some of the fluid. While some people might say 1/2 inch over is still okay, but honestly, that's pushing it. If it's just 1/4 inch over, it's a good idea to reduce the fluid level to prevent potential damage to the transmission. Symptoms of too much transmission fluid. So what happens if your transmission is overfilled? Let's look at the most common signs to look out for. Foamy or bubbly fluid. When you pull the dipstick out, the transmission fluid might look foamy or have visible bubbles in it. That's usually a sign of overfilling. While foam can also be caused by things like condensation or moisture in the system, it's a common red flag when there's too much fluid in the transmission. Overheating transmission. Too much fluid can cause increased pressure inside the transmission. This extra pressure forces the system to work harder, which can lead to the transmission overheating. You might even get a warning light on the dash or a message from the onboard computer about high transmission temperature. Shifting problems. Another big symptom is poor shifting performance. You might notice that the transmission doesn't shift smoothly or only shifts at higher RPMs. For example, you really have to rev the engine before it finally shifts into second or third gear, or experience unusual shifting behavior. Strange or delayed shifts like that are often tied to excess fluid affecting how the transmission operates. If you're seeing any of these signs, it's a good idea to check your fluid level and make sure it's not overfilled. Leaking seals. Another symptom of overfilled transmission fluid is leaking seals. The excess pressure inside the transmission puts strain on the seals, causing them to wear out or fail. As a result, you may notice transmission fluid pooling underneath your vehicle. If the leak is just starting, it might be a small amount around the seals or bolts. But as the pressure continues, you could experience more significant leaks. So if you notice any fluid spots, it could be a sign that the seals are starting to leak due to too much transmission fluid. How to remove excess transmission fluid. To reduce the transmission fluid, there are a few methods you can try. First, check if your transmission pan has a drain plug. Some vehicles, like certain Toyotas, might have one, but it's less common in others, like Ford or Chevy models. If you do have a drain plug, you can simply loosen it to drain the excess fluid. If there isn't a drain plug, another effective method is to use a fluid pump. To do this, remove the dipstick, insert the hose into the tube, and pump out the excess fluid until the level is correct. This is a common and relatively inexpensive way to remove fluid, and it works well if you don't have a drain plug. If you need to drain the fluid, using one of these pumps is probably your best option. Another option is to simply have your transmission fluid changed. If done correctly, the mechanic will drain all the old fluid and refill it with the right amount of new fluid. If you've checked and found that your fluid is overfilled, and you don't have the tools or methods to reduce it yourself, getting a full transmission fluid change is a good solution. The mechanic will ensure the fluid is at the proper level when they add the new fluid. And that's it. If you have anything to add, feel free to comment below. If this video was helpful, please hit like, subscribe to the channel, and have a great day.